All right, people. So this is going to be part 2 of the mirror. And if you haven't had a chance to watch part 1, you really need to go do that because it's going to explain pretty much just about everything. At least the essential stuff that you really need to know about what these mentally ill, insane, beyond insane, or beyond criminally insane, whatever the hell they are, have been using it for. And simplified down, it's basically nothing more than a model or re-legioning uh, of of what they were intending to do. But anyhow, in an effort to keep this short, I'm gonna just get right to the main reason I'm doing this part 2. It's not gonna be the big musical production, like the first part was. It's mainly meant to kind of make reference of this one very nice, very kind individual that I think just needs to be said. Okay, but anyhow, and I may have to do a whole separate one on Deus, which in Latin that pretty much translates into God. Um, and not sure about anybody else, but that for me, Latin is the most backward sounding, most evil language I have ever heard in my life. When you see how a lot of these words, these English words, trace back to and break down, kind of hover around Latin, and how the mirror is being used to, or the mixture of that is being used to, basically change the context without giving you disclosure, of course. This is what I'm saying, fraud is fraud. Non-disclosure is non-disclosure, period. Then when you do it, several 100 million or billion times over, wow. Intent's pretty obvious, right? Anyhow, but this is just, this part 2 is just meant to be a short one, without the musical production again, like I said. Just wanting to reference one particular individual because I think it just needs to be said. A very kind and very thoughtful and considered individual who, to me, I just felt that if you comprehend what they used the mirror for, or what they do use it for, and then what was done to him, is just, at the very least, just absolutely sickening. Anyhow, so on that part 1, there's one term that I left for this one, and it's called inverted blame. Inverted blame, basically, and as you can see it up on the screen there, I'll have it up on the screen here, so you can read it. You can pause it if you need to. Inverted blame is when, this comes from the mirror, okay? It's when they will commit the crime and at the same time have already decided that they're going to blame the victim for it. This is how sick and deranged and insane these idiots are. Inverted blame. Now, what does that do when you blame the victim? Well, first of all, it's unlawful, for starters. So let's start with that. But second, what it does is it throws the victim into almost an uncontrollable need to prove their innocence, because they are. And then on top of that, they're the ones that were hurt. And probably the most The other thing is it will eat, and I mean really, really, really eat up that individual's time. So much so trying to prove their innocence that they cannot do anything else. Anything. And it's simply one of the most evil things that you can do to someone. I know there's a lot of that out there, but it's absolutely, like I said, beyond insane. In the case with the case involving, I'm going to refer to him as Mr. Mike, and I hope he doesn't mind, because I'm one of those old school, old fashioned. My folks told me, they always told me, make sure you properly address everyone. So they never forgive me if I didn't. So anyhow, so in the case of Mr. Mike, you must know this information first before you hear any of that garbage. You know what I'm talking about, the excrements that they put in your ear. They're inverted blamings of Mr. Mike. Look at what they did to him. Look at what they did to him. All he wanted to do, people, he just wanted to make music and make people happy. And look at what they did to him. And people will say probably, well, how do you know? Why are you a victim? Were you victimized too? How do you know? Well, the answer to your question is unfortunately yes. You see, Mr. Mike was, I know he won't view it like this, but he was kind of lucky in a way, because at least he got to see his family with that very method, simply because I was successful and played the game by their rules and still succeeded more than once. Well, see, when their system that's put in place fails to tear you down and make you penniless and broke, well, they just come after it anyway. But see, when those who, were somewhat bright and decide to check into the situation and end up finding out exactly what these, whatever the hell they are, actually were doing, that's when, well, for some reason they feel like they can just, through straight crime, just come and take everything from you. But the worst part of it, every single part of my family was taken from me like that. And a couple even worse, but we'll leave that for now. How would you feel not being able to even see, even once, a member of your family for 7 years and counting. Now ask me that question again. So you see, I had no choice but to fight and do my homework. And I did it well. But when I think about this, it's what happens when you give mentally ill, deranged, beyond criminally insane individuals control which they never deserved, nor were they awarded, of things of great value and or power. This is what happens. And it's ridiculous. And it just stops right now. But getting back to this case here, when you get exactly how this mirror, the model of it, how it's used, and what it's used for in terms of evil terms, and then you think about Mr. Mike. I mean, if you've been keeping up with any of what's been uncovered so far about these idiots, I don't know about anybody else, but the thing that made me the most, absolutely most ticked off was the fact that they actually thought that for some reason they, had the right to not just take your life from you, quality of life, your monies, your properties, your credit, your everything, and then, keep on acting, as they say, on this worldwide stage, as they say. Well, act on if you want to, but don't cross that line. But see, they crossed it. And leaving even me out of the picture, they crossed, I think, way too many. Because it's a little different story now. But when you know how all of this works and what they use that mirror for, and what, just any idea of what's been uncovered regarding children, things like that, and you know for a fact that they use inverted blame against every single one of their victims. Now I'm going to ask you again, what do you think of now when you think of Mr. Mike? Now that doesn't include the people who don't get this yet. You have to get everything first. It is so obvious what was done. Now me personally, I worry about a whole nother part of it. I worry going the other way from Mr. Mike. Well, I'm not going to bring it up again, but I just brought up the reference to children. So, it's just not, that's not right. And it stops right now. All right, so for this last part, I had actually mentioned to a couple of people that I was going to be doing this second part, especially referencing, Mr. Mike, and I don't mind. I mean, I'll share a little bit with you about what they asked me about. There's one thing I'll save that for last though. So the first thing they actually had asked me was, because they know if I'm either forced or elect to investigate something, they know how that's done. They know to what degree or the kind of, or the caliber that's done. So, and they know what my results have been in the past. So I'll share a few of them with you. Of course, the first thing they asked was, everybody's going to associate, when you're referencing, Mr. Mike, and you're given the title of this presentation, well, they said, well, we know what, is the song was about, but was there anything, else to it? And, I pretty much know that they have not looked into or are aware of certain things. So I said, well, if that's what you think the song is, then I think you might be mistaken about the real meaning of that. Because, I don't want to go up and down the lyric sheet, but to give you just a couple of examples, and I have to do my best to recollect here. When he's talking about looking at, and it could be anything in the mirror, but when he's, in this case, you can bet that if it's in the mirror and knowing what these idiots, these inverted blame using, insane and beyond criminally insane idiots did to him, you would know that if it's anything in the mirror, that's probably not going to be good or honest, or at the very least, definitely not able to be trusted or anything. But when he is referring to when he's looking in the mirror, I think he's talking to the man in the mirror, whatever, he's not talking about himself, people. If you notice, he's asking them to change their ways. He knew. Now, I don't usually, now, like I said, I have a lot more in common with Mr. Mike than he's aware of, or anybody's aware of. So I don't usually quote people knowing stuff because you really don't know, but nice to have a real long list of song titles. Oh, yes. A very long list of song titles that they just happen to once, maybe two, could be three. Yeah, well, there's no more coinkydinks left. He knew. And what's more than that, now this is something I have to put a safety valve on and say, it's, it is my honest belief that he was doing his best, as everybody is so horrifically finding out now, to throw any kind of warning out there. And, just like I have up here, there's a lot of people that heard him. They just didn't listen. Asking him to change his ways. Why are you doing this? Why are you people doing this, these things, these evil things? In other words, please Stop already. Just stop. Stop hurting me. Stop hurting everybody else. You know, and when you're aware of what the people, you have no idea how deep it goes. It sounds very simple and sweet and to the point. Sweet again, and it has to be that way. But that's just it. Have you ever looked at a photo taken of the person or the individual, and then taken of the same individual, same clothes, same jewelry, same everything, but taken in the mirror instead? And you just crop the borderline of the mirror out. And you've got very good photography equipment. How do you tell the difference? Well, see, unfortunately, the wrong group of whatever the hell they are, at some point decided to try to use that little convenient space of mirrored intentions or whatever, DEUS or whatever, as a hiding space, as a Teflon space, as a can't touch this space. Well, I don't think it's necessarily that way at the moment anyway. But if you just go back over those words, think about what you've learned, and you'll see what I do maybe. He says no message could have been any clearer. People, he's saying what all the rest of us have. I said it as clear as I could. There's no way they could have misunderstood that, but they did it anyway. Why did they do that? Those kinds of things, those types of things. I know they didn't misunderstand me, and they didn't. They're just evil and insane, and beyond insane, beyond criminally insane is all get up. That's it. He says, and that's why I'm starting with me. He's not saying, okay, I'll see what I can do to change myself. You see what you do to change yours. That's the other side. That's, okay to let people think. But that other meaning, look, it's dangerous in here, okay, but okay, I'll go first. I'll talk to him and see, Yeah, it's a little different when you consider the mirror, okay? I mean, if you really want to take it all the way back, go look up the term logarithm. Not algorithm. Oh, I forgot. That's right. Yeah, they tend to kind of reverse things, don't they? So conveniently. And then they add their own little definition in there. So, you want to make the world a better place? Take a look at yourself, but it's what I gather is in that mirror. And, in other words, start doing the coloring. And everybody will start following. That sounds close enough. Do I think, Mr. Mike might still be kicking it? Or, or not? And I just basically told him, well, look, yes, I do, due to everything I've seen, especially recently, I have an opinion. But, just like with the extremely nice gentleman who has agreed to put a face on, our biggest problems at the moment, which I think everybody refers to as the president. Whether it be for personal reasons or for, matters of, as they say, but this would be in the correct way, of national security, it probably wouldn't be in the best interest to blab all that out. Now, would it? And I'm just giving an example, like if, I knew something that nobody else did, or realized something that nobody else did, it wouldn't do, the president or country any good now, would it? Because after all, it's everybody's goodwill and their welfare and safety that you have in top priority. So in this case, I'm probably going to have to take that same stance on it, but I can tell you that yes, things did reveal an obvious conclusion. I can play with it like this if he's not still kicking it. You can simply just say thank you so much and we love you anyway, and just love him anyway, and just thank him anyway, and be grateful. And if he is still kicking it and around somewhere, well, just say you love him anyway and thank him anyway, and respect people's privacy. People, I mean, I don't think the average person has to learn that lesson, but I know that there's those who know that they got to work on that. Now, of course, if it was that outcome and you were a good friend, you'd be like, oh yeah, you slick, ain't you? But see, you don't know, you don't know. But did my findings come to an ultimate conclusion? Yes, they did. But that's not my place to say one way or the other, because, again, you just be grateful either way. And, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to say something. It's just that you have to be able to respect people's privacy too. So it's not to, this is just an example. If let's say things were that way, you don't want to, just so you can say something out in public somewhere, and then if it was part of a much bigger picture, what if all that were to get spoiled by something you did or said? That, I don't know, just calculate it. Probably wouldn't make you feel the best, now would it? But yes, I did come to a conclusion, and I'm very satisfied with it. And it'll just remain with me for now. The last thing would be, they asked me, was if the latter of that, meaning if, Mr. Mike was, still kicking it around somewhere, what would I say to him? My immediate response to him was, well, okay, you know what? A kick-ass view count for me on this will probably be 1. It'll probably be myself anyway. But just in case there's, a whopping 2 views, and in the undescribable miracle that, all that other stuff was, was still kicking, and just, happened to be, wow, might actually be, that's anyway. But if he could hear me, what would I say? This is what I would say. I would simply say this. Oh Lord, here we go. All right, so what I would say was simply this. I would say, Star Brother, Thank you so much for everything. And I'm so proud of you. You've done so well. I'm so proud of you. And I love you. And by the way, from this point, don't you worry, star brother. I got your back. I got your back. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.